Unfortunately, I think on Libya, the policy was too late to come to a coherent policy, even till the very day. Look, I'm very happy that Muammar Gaddafi is not going to be around in Libya, and I actually think the administration didn't handle that well because they waited too long to move one way or the other. Either way they wanted to go, but they had to make a move early and be decisive, and not doing that actually has allowed this to go on longer.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. That was Marco Rubio speaking yesterday on Fox News. Joining us now, national security reporter for The Nation, Mr. Jeremy Scahill. Jeremy, good to see you.
Thanks.
What do you think about that analysis? Some people have said that the president didn't go about this the right way, and yet it appears he has the outcome he wanted, which is that Gaddafi's been removed from power.
Well, I think we have to remember that the situation in Libya is very different than a lot of the other revolts or revolutions we've seen with the Arab Spring. This was really NATO-enforced regime change, if you want to be honest about it, pummeling Libya with missiles for months, and really sort of dramatically going off to the races with a fairly narrowly focused UN Security Council resolution. And we know very little about the rebels that we're supporting. It's a sort of mixture of very wealthy former regime people, Islamists, and tribal players, and they're true to form, they come out and they start talking about how they're going to open it up for Western oil interests, which, a lot of people were being sort of pushed aside when they were talking about the oil interest in Libya at the beginning of this as sort of leftists or anti-war people that will never, reconcile it with anything that the president does. On the other hand, if you look at the New York Times yesterday, there's a huge piece about how the people that the United States has backed in Libya are going to push the oil contracts toward the West and away from, China and Brazil, who were taking a very a position in opposition to what the U.S. was doing. The criticism of the president, though, that he didn't act fast enough, I would sort of go at it from a different angle and say that he's sort of implementing the Bush domino agenda in the Middle East. And I think that those people that are criticizing him and saying that he didn't do enough haven't been studying covert U.S. policy. That this president is widely using the CIA, the Elite Joint Special Operations Command. There was just a massive airstrike in Yemen this morning where upwards of 30 people were killed. I mean, we've got 6, 7 wars going at the same time. So, I think that criticism is ill-founded. If anything, I think we should be questioning if this is the sort of policy the U.S. wants to move forward with, forced regime change. I don't care that Muammar Gaddafi's gone. I mean, I think most of the world's happy to see the guy gone. The issue for me as an American is how does this comport with our values or sense of international law and order when we can force regime change, even if it's against someone we despise? That's a very slippery slope that under Bush would have, I think, had a lot more pushback.
Governor Dean, you said yesterday this is the first example, really, perhaps we've seen of Obama's foreign policy style, which is that take a back seat, work with allies to move forward and not move unilaterally, as we had in the past under George Bush.
I think I agree with what Jeremy just said. I think that's a really good analysis of what he's doing, and it's very smart. You don't put boots in the ground. You don't commit trillions of dollars to a war in Iraq. You do it with the other tools that we have that, frankly, work much better over the long term because you don't get a lot of public resistance, which is drones, special operations forces, use of intelligence agencies. That's exactly what he did in Libya. This really was a NATO effort. This wasn't like the operation, whatever it was called, Willing Coalition or whatever they called it.
The Coalition of the Willing.
The Coalition of the Willing.
I believe it's called Operation Mermaid Dawn. Who comes up with these? We had Neptune Spear was Osama, and now we've got Mermaid Dawn.
It becomes self-parody at this point.
But this was, and it would have been, frankly, much smarter if you wanted to get rid of Saddam Hussein instead of planning ourselves over there and making Iran the winner, which is we now have made Iran the major power in that region of the country because of what we did. Wouldn't it have been a lot smarter to spend money on drones and intelligence and take out Saddam that way?
I agree. I mean, we heard a lot about soft power, hard power. It seems like this is smart power, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
He's been criticized a lot, Obama, for being behind, leading from behind. But actually, this is one place where I really kind of like his caution. I mean, he's proving to be a very interesting kind of war president, actually, because he's very careful and considered and unthreatened by all the noise around him while he makes those kind of decisions. And then he does go in a kind of rather smart way and gets gets some result without having a whole bunch of American loss of life.
So. Not to rain though on your drone loving parade. point here. But the president has dramatically expanded, as we all know, the drone operations in Pakistan, has expanded them into Somalia. I was just in Somalia looking at the role of the CIA there, as well as Yemen. And I think that one of the aspects of this we have to be very vigilant in monitoring is blowback. In Pakistan, we certainly see it as a major propaganda tool for Tehrik-i-Taliban, the Pakistani Taliban, and other insurgent groups, because a tremendous number of civilians have been killed. In Yemen, the U.S. has killed important tribal figures that could have been flipped or potentially would have been, U.S. allies. And in Somalia, we're killing tremendous numbers of innocent people in the pursuit of a handful, maybe a dozen or so foreign fighters that are there. And so, as this president expands the sort of hard hammer of covert operations, its reach around the world, I think we have to be concerned that we are making future enemies. Remember the experience in Afghanistan in the 80s. I mean, this stuff can come back around in a huge way.
But the problem is you have to understand that they are, I mean, you do understand, of course, because this is your life. But the main mission here is to stop them before they get to the United States. I mean, that's the underlying mission, is to, because if al-Shabaab runs Somalia, presumably al-Qaeda will be invited into al-Shabaab, and there will be their base. So this is not going to be what's the right thing to do. It's just going to be what's the least bad thing to do. And I think what Obama's doing is a whole lot better than what George Bush did.
Well, I think Obama has been able to expand programs that President McCain would not have been able to. And I think that's why he does have a lot of popularity, especially in the dark ops community. I mean, I think these guys have been let off the leash. As a former, JSOC operative told me, we're able to hit harder in more countries under Obama than we were under Bush. And they have the full protection of a very sharp, intelligent president who's created a legal framework that says to the CIA, hey, we can go forward and do these things.
It is the most ironic thing about the Bush.
But it's much better than sending massive amounts of troops, spending trillions of dollars, and 5,000 or 6,000 American lives.
Well, and I mean, however, in Afghanistan and Iraq both, the end of significant U.S. troop presence is not necessarily around the corner. I mean, we've been hearing rumblings recently about, 20, 30 more years in Afghanistan. In Iraq, there's a recent agreement extends the presence of U.S. troops there. I agree with you that, the president's rhetoric about trying to end these large-scale operations is certainly a step forward. I don't think we're really seeing it in action yet, and that's I think, the concern.
You're right about the whole scary aspect of the law of unintended consequences, that it's only going to be sort of 10 years down the line that we're going to know what all of this has wrought.
That's true.
I mean, there is something so incredibly Peter Sellers about this whole Libyan rebellion. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me to watch this. Do we have any confidence at all in any member of this rebellion and opposition that there is anybody who's going to be able to do anything about this country afterwards? Because talk about breaking it and fixing it.
Well, there's a real dearth of I think good reporting on this right now, and I think all of us I think are in awe of the courage and bravery of journalists from Al Jazeera to Richard Engel to Sarah Seidner on CNN. I mean, just incredible reporting's come out of this. But at the end of the day, you have to move past the euphoria and say, who are the people that are going to be running Libya? It's a coalition of people that are very untested on the international scene, and I think that the possibility of Libya continuing to be incredibly unstable for a long time to come is certainly there. And who are these guys? Are they Islamists? Are they corrupt sheikhs? I mean, who is it that we're backing right now?
Isn't that what we always do, though, Jeremy? Whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, we get the bad guy out and worry about what happens.
Well, the last time we did this kind of regime change, Iraq, what happened? You get Nouri al-Maliki as prime minister, who is much closer to Iran than he is to the United States. You have U.S. soldiers continuing to be killed there
by Iranians,
and we didn't even get the oil. They say, "Oh, Paul Wolfowitz, we're going to pay for it with the oil."
And the Chinese got the oil.
China got the oil. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're not very good at regime change. We're just good at overthrowing.
The
but what comes
country
next?
in general, the American people and the mainstream media are incredibly naive. If we get the best we're going to do, I think, out of the Arab Spring is get a democracy in Tunisia. The other countries are not going to be democracies. They may be more like democracies than they used to be, which would be a good thing. But
Egypt is going sort of severely wrong, isn't it?
It's Mubarak after Mubarak.
I think anybody who thought Egypt was going to end up as a democracy, what I think the best we can hope for Egypt is it's controlled by the military with some democratic, as long as you don't go past a certain line, it'll be somewhat more democratic than it was. The biggest problem in Egypt is the economy. I don't think the military can run this economy to create the number of jobs that need to be created in Egypt.
Too, of course,
Who knows what's going to happen in Libya, but it's not going to be what we consider to be a democracy.
No, and remember, if we move into Libya quickly and start playing oil politics, which it really seems like that's going to happen, I think it's going to tremendously backfire. I think it's going to become flypaper for a jihad against the U.S. and its allies there. I mean, this is dangerous, high-stakes stuff, and I think the U.S. is very short-sighted in its Libya policy.
All right, Jeremy Scahill, one of the best reporters out there writing for The Nation. Jeremy, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Tina Brown, thank you as well. Good to see you. What do you have on the Beast? What's big right now?
Terrific piece, actually, by Jeffrey Robinson, the former the Hague judge, who's written a really good piece about how essential it is now to bring Gaddafi to the War Crimes Tribunal and not to let this just be tried in Libya, because he says, you know, Gaddafi controlled the jurisprudence whole system there, so he must be taken out. Otherwise, we're going to wind up with a grotesque, like Saddam-like lynching, which did nobody any good.
Right. You can read it at thedailybeast.com. Tina, Jeremy, thanks so much. Up next.